these are our conversations with the candidates for this municipal election of 2021 in the city of Holyoke. And we are with Israel Rivera, Isi Rivera, who is running for city council at large. So Isi, thank you so much for being here with us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you again for inviting me and allowing me to come up and chat with you for the second time in the last 4 years, right? It feels like almost yesterday before my baby was born, and now my baby's about to be 2. And there's another baby on the way. So that kind of put some context with the time that's passed, right? So yeah, no, thank you again. And it's a pleasure to be here. I'm ready for whatever questions that come.
Perfect. So if you could introduce yourself, so that way people get to know exactly who you are.
My name is Israel Rivera. As he said, as Johan had mentioned, I'm running for city council at large. I grew up here in Holyoke. I was born in Gary, Indiana. We moved to Puerto Rico, and from Puerto Rico, we moved here. I went to the Holyoke Public Schools, McMahon, Magnet, Holyoke High School. I went to Holyoke Community College, graduated in 2016. I went to the University of Massachusetts, graduated in 2018 with a bachelor's degree in sociology. And I'm currently at the University of Massachusetts in the Master's in Public Policy Administration program. I am kind of halfway through because I'm taking 2 or 3 classes at a time. I'm a dad, I'm a full-time employee, and I'm a community advocate. So that takes a lot of my time. Another thing I would like to highlight as well is that I have been involved in community organizing for about almost 10 years now. And I would say even more than that while I was working at the Boys and Girls Club from my ages 14 to about 19. So that would total to almost about 15 to 16 years of my life, pretty much doing community advocacy work within the city of Holyoke. Yeah. Throughout the process, there'll be more things that I'll be able to highlight about myself. It's just, I don't really like talking about myself. I feel like it's kind of bragging, and that's never been my style.
So going into the questions, what will be right now your top priorities as a candidate?
So right now as a candidate, top priorities, because there's two different things when you are a candidate and an actual counselor, right? So as a candidate right now, it's getting people registered, getting people interested in the local elections, into local politics. Usually for me, it's in the lower wards, mostly Ward 1 and Ward 2. I grew up in Ward 1. I grew up in the flats. The turnout is usually low. So one of the reasons why I decided to run is because I grew up in these neighborhoods, and I feel like it's an inspirational thing to try to get people that they know or they grew up with that can try to represent them in these type of roles. And to be honest, I did a standout yesterday in the corner of Cabin and Main Street. I try to do my standouts in the lower wards just so that the people down there can understand and see that we're involved and we care. And I had about 10 to 15 people that grew up with me in the lower wards, and these people never stood out before. This is the first time they did a standout, and they're all like, yo, this is cool. We actually get to hang out in the corner and not be asked to move by the, you know what I mean? Like, because as a kids growing up, we were always asked to move from the corners and stuff or whatnot. So now it's like, yo, we get to actually like sit out here and do something positive. Wow, this is cool. Like, but yeah, no, yeah, that I think for me, that's the most important thing as a candidate is getting more people involved, and it's trying to provide the opportunity and the platform for people's voices that normally don't express their voice or don't get heard. There are people that don't believe in our local political system, so they decide not to vote, but I still hear them, right? And people still hear them. They still have concerns. They still have complaints. They may not go out and vote, but they still have those concerns and complaints. And for me, it's trying to get them to come out. And if they don't, trying to represent some of the stuff that they're bringing to me to the table.
And this leads, especially when you mention this representation for the constituents, to the next part of the question, which is, what will be your priorities should you become city councilor at large, knowing there's plenty of matters to take care of, including these concerns that you hear from constituents? So what will be those priorities?
I think for me, the priorities are to hear the constituents out, hear the residents out, the ones that are the loudest, right? And then also try to seek out input from the ones that don't put any input. You know what I mean? I think the intriguing thing that I bring to the table is that I'm in circles or around in social networks within the community that I can tap into voices that usually don't get heard, or voices that usually don't come out and vote and stuff like that. So the idea for me is during that process on the council as a priority is to try to get some of the concerns on the table and some of the concerns solved, right? But at the same time, it's developing different groups, initiatives, bringing in different organizations that are that are here to help solve some of these problems and to provide services. So, for example, if we're saying homelessness, substance abuse, drug dealing, crime, for me, there are solutions that we can take that are preventative, with regards to that. So, like working closely with Mass Hire, working closely with Public Community College, working closely with other or agencies, the Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, Homework House. We should be working closely with these agencies, providing them more opportunities for them to grow and expand their programming so that more youth and more kids in the community are being included within these groups. We need to have more programming for the kids. It's preventative. The future, they are the future, right? So for me, as a kid growing up at the Boys and Girls Club, I know how much value they added to my life and how much value they added to a lot of other kids in the community that I grew up with. So I think that would be one of my priorities as well. And getting people together on the council, working together to actually move things forward and and stop the what's it called, the back and forth. I understand there's going to be back and forth regardless, but we have to do it in a way where there's still going to be progress for the community and for the city overall, not in a way that it will just keep us stagnant.
You mentioned this importance of listening to the constituents and to get them involved, particularly to come to city council and to vote. And all of this comes into what we can put together as civic engagement. So this being our next question, how would you encourage more civic engagement throughout the city?
So again, I am civic, how do you say it? Not how, I guess I feel like I'm a community organizer at heart, right? And this is the things that I've been doing since my release from prison. So one thing I haven't mentioned, I have for the last several years, just in case, but I haven't mentioned here, is I did serve some prison time. I went to prison for 5 years and I was released in 2012. And from 2012, I got my degree at HEC, UMass, and now getting my master's at UMass. But within that time span, I have organized a variety of different basketball tournaments, community dinners that are one that's going on its 6th annual now. And I've collaborated with a variety of different people that have been organizing a variety of different events throughout the city, all 7 wards. So the idea is, for me, is with this question, it's a given. This is one of the things that civic engagement is a given, I guess, just to be clear. These are one of the things that I'm trying to run my platform on, whereas as city councilors, we shouldn't just be doing policy. We should be organizing community too as well. and trying to bring in businesses and letting businesses know that we are in a community that is together and we will work together to try to get things done. There are some, but many councilors just are involved with the policy part and the political part, which is just making ordinances, cutting budgets, and all the other stuff. That's great. That's awesome. But we need people that are going to be working with people to help develop initiatives and coalitions that can work towards substance abuse issues, work towards tackling homelessness issues, work towards tackling any other issues within the community that we face. We as a community need to be able to work together and build community, right? And by doing all of this, that's how you build community. I'm going to be the first to say that I'll lead by example. And I want to focus on trying to get other city councilors on the table to sit with me and try to invite organizations in the community to try to develop some sort of a coalition to see if we could develop strategies or at least have an idea of where we want to go when we do these things.
Changing topic for a moment, and of course, another important aspect, especially when we talk about those policy makings and changes that City Council is capable of doing. And let's talk about businesses, knowing they are faced with several challenges in order to operate or even to open and get started in the city of Holyoke. So knowing all these challenges, which one do you think are the most difficult that they have to deal with? And overall, what would you propose to solve these issues businesses are challenged with?
So I think the biggest challenge is the tax rate, right? That hurts any business that comes into the community, especially when there's competitive tax rates throughout other communities that are neighboring us. I totally understand that piece. Those are things that were in place before me. I'm welcome to work with anybody to try to develop solutions to see how we can either keep this tax rate where it is or lower it for future instances. But I don't know too well or in history where taxes go down, just in my experience or in my lifetime. But I'm willing to work around and try to figure out avenues to do that. That's the first thing, right? But the other piece is a major hurdle that I have noticed is the permitting process and businesses trying to get things done at City Hall. So I think one of the major things that we need to do as a council is to help our city departments streamline a process where applications and everything are all in one. Like they should have one face sheet that has everything, every box that needs to be checked when you're when you're trying to get permits as a business, when you're trying to organize events, when you're trying to do anything that has to do with City Hall. There should be a straight face sheet that has every box that needs to be checked in for whatever particular permit that you're applying for. I think having the departments, this is not a council job, and this would be a job for the incoming mayor, which is something that I would support and push for both of them, which is to have more what do we call it, monthly meetings, department meetings, having the department heads come together and chat out their processes amongst each other so that everyone knows what's happening, when, where, and how, right? A lot of the issues that I've seen with regards to the processes of people trying to get businesses and come into the community has people going from one department to the next department to the next department, and none of them are communicating with one another. So I think strengthening that process an easy fix would be having them meet regularly about this process, and maybe have people come together, and when they meet, they can get all their permits all in one shot, which would make things a lot easier. We are in 2021, running on an antiquated system. I'm not saying that we have to bring everything technologically up to date, but there are systems in our neighboring communities and communities that are similar to ours that we could try to replicate, that could help us develop a more effective and efficient system for businesses. Then the other thing is businesses, especially small businesses, they need more support, man. Whether you're on Northampton Street, whether you're on High Street, whether you're on Main Street, and I mentioned these particular streets because all of these streets have most of our small businesses, and when you look at it, they're not getting support from the city with regards to cleanliness of their properties. It's not welcoming for people to come into the businesses, and I think that especially in High Street, we need to try to find ways to invest in beautifying our neighborhoods, especially our most busiest streets where our businesses are, and allowing for the businesses to draw more people and more customers.
You talk about some aspects the city could improve on, and definitely being the city council helps to make those changes possible, or at least to bring them to the conversation. So it is also known that when government has to put together ideas and come up with proposals and changes, there is always criticism on some decisions, but it's also many things that are done right, many things that are innovative. So in this aspect, what do you think the city has done right lately?
I think lately what they've done right is allowing, and this is part of the permitting process too. It's a struggle for people to apply when they're trying to organize events and entertainment. And recently, I collaborated with a group of community organizers that organized the first annual Paper City Food Festival, and in assisting them, advising pretty much, because they did all the work. I didn't really do. I just pretty much like connected dots for them and let them know where they needed to go or whatnot. But allowing them to be able to do that and then seeing the project come to fruition and how much money was actually generated, no one knows at the moment. But if we were to actually do some form of study, it'd be cool to find out how much money was generated through those 4 or 5 hours within the local businesses that came out and were there. There were a lot of people present. That was something that was great. That will help bring life to High Street, as well as the Doors Open event that just happened over the weekend. That was something that I seen the community overall downtown it was pretty lit, right? We had people throughout Main Street, Ray Street, is it Appleton? Yeah, I believe it's Appleton. High Street. People were going to different places, and they had the opportunity to go into all these buildings that have been closed for a very long time, which is a pretty awesome thing. Again, these are initiatives, movements that are going to bring people to Holyoke and alter the narrative. One of the things for me is trying to alter the narrative here in the community, not just for the outsiders to understand. And when I mean outsiders, I mean people that what the news puts out in the news, and people come and they say, "Oh my God, Holyoke, this and this and that." There are certain things that people are. There are certain narratives put out there that are not necessarily true. So to me, it's like we have opportunities, and with some of these things, we can help alter the narrative and let people come in here and see how safe our community technically is if we open the doors.
And changing topic one more time. We know that the Holyoke Public Schools, the school district, has been under control of the state with this receivership that now is 5 years, over 5 years. What are your thoughts on the receivership?
So for me, with regards to receivership, so in the beginning, it felt like a receivership, and it still obviously does, right? There, you know what it is. I want local control. I am an advocate for local control, but at the same time, I understand that there are steps to this, right? There are processes, and there are ways to attain local control. And at the moment, I have to be quite honest, the superintendent / receiver, Anthony Soto, is technically a born and bred Holyoke kid, right? So the person that's overseeing our Holyoke Public Schools is a Holyoker. That has been historically true, right? At least during my existence, right? It's always been somebody from Holyoke running the schools. And right now, that's what we have. In a sense, for me, it's about supporting schools, right? Helping support the people that are there now so that we can get to the goals of the benchmarks that are set. I mean, I'm understanding that other counselors are saying that there aren't no benchmarks and that there are no goals set. That is not necessarily true. I believe that there are some goals set. It's just that they're not clear. I get that part. I totally get that part. And I want to call on. I also want to get to that point where it's like we need to understand what our goals are and what are the benchmarks for us to get to this point. But to do that, we have to work with the receiver and / superintendent. We have to work with the people that are there. And that's the only way it's going to happen. I currently am an employee at the Holyoke Public Schools, right? I've been there for about maybe 30 to 40 days. And I'm working with trying to get the community to help alter the narrative of our schools. And that's the main thing. Once we change our attitudes, once we change the way we are approaching education in the city of Holyoke, things will change. And we're trying to grow. I think ultimately we're trying to grow. The city's trying to grow. But yeah, I think if we working together as a community, as a city, towards attaining success at our schools, parents, the schools, and neighbors. And what I mean by neighbors is parents or people, residents of Holyoke that don't have kids that attend the schools. If we all come together and we focus on trying to get our schools in the right place, we can do a lot. We've done a lot on a variety of different occasions when emergencies have happened in the community. And I think that our education for a while now has been an emergency. So maybe we should all focus and look at it like that so that we can all work together and come together to try to get things done.
This is our conversation with Israel Rivera, candidate for City Council at large in this municipal election of 2021 in the city of Holyoke. Israel, thank you so much for this opportunity to get to talk to you. And is there any last remarks you would like to make?
Lastly, I would say, if you want to know more about me, check me out at israelrivera.com or Israel Rivera, the committee to elect Israel Rivera on Facebook. At the same time, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm Israel Rivera, just me. And at the same time, November 2nd is coming up fast. Please consider voting for me on November 2nd, one of 6 votes. I promise you that we're going to change history in Holyoke, and let's get together and let's make history. I'll see you guys.